Hello and welcome, all you beautiful individuals, to another episode of League Unlock, and it is another countdown episode as we get ready for the World Championship. It's time to take a step back into time and revisit and relive the greatest playoff series in the history of the World Championship. So yes, we are talking knockout rounds, quarterfinals, semifinals, and grand finals. Obviously, there have been some absolutely incredible back and forth series, some come from behind wins, and just incredible outplays and moments. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of SKT on this list because when you've been to the finals 4 times and won 3 of them, you've just played a whole lot more best of 5 series than anyone else in the history of the World Championship. But when we start with number 5, it's no SKT, it's no Korean teams at all. It's an all-China matchup. We're going to 2014 OMG versus Starhorn Royal Club before they were RNG, but Uzi was still on the roster, and this is the roster for Starhorn that went all the way to the finals. It was the second time in a row that Uzi had gone to the finals, but in the semifinal matchup against OMG, after taking down EDG in 5, Starhorn went against OMG, and I mean, right out of the gates, game 1, this is 2.5 minutes. Minions are already spawned, and there's a 5v5 around the blue buff. That's just what the meta was in 2014 for the LPL. You know that there was a whole lot of fighting, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. But game 1, it was a pretty dominant win and fashion for OMG. You had Lovelings Kha'Zix popping off, and remember, there was a lot of carry junglers. There wasn't so much tanking that was going on in this era of League of Legends. And then in game 2, it was much closer. There was a whole lot more back and forth. You got fights around the Baron Pit, and there were a lot of fights around the Baron Pit and a lot of kills, although not still to the standard that we're seeing in Season 9, but it was Starhorn that just survived, and they won a few more fights around. It was the Uzi versus San show in this one, and San was 7-1-5 to close this one out on the Corki, but it was Uzi who got the last laugh as Starhorn tied the series up at 1, and Game 3 is really where this one got very interesting, and it of course started with the pick ban, as they do close out game 2 eventually. It took a while, and there was a lot of back and forth, by the way. We're north of 40 minutes here, so you know Death Timers are going to be a long time, and boy did I miss Mundo in the top lane. Just kidding, nobody missed that, but here it is, the Fiddlesticks jungle for Insec in this one. Now, Fiddlesticks had only been played 3 times the entire year, and none at Worlds, of course. OMG had a 10k gold lead in this game before RNG found those prime engages on the surprise party Fiddlesticks to get back into this game, but they were at a huge deficit. San was flame horizoning Uzi in that Lucian versus Twitch matchup, but again, gold leads don't matter when you got the surprise Fiddlesticks. As soon as you get that Zhonya's, it was basically one team fight after another that RNG slowly started cutting into that deficit, and then finally around the bot lane inhib, it's another engage. Insec absolutely kills everybody on that Fiddles, and then Starhorn just runs it down mid. They had already taken down the inhibs. They cancel the backs on the 2 surviving members of OMG. They had no business winning this game, but they do to take a 2-1 series lead. And you know, Insec is happy when he's getting a win again on Fiddlesticks. In game 4, what was the most maybe impressive part of this series, you think OMG would be completely tilted after blowing a game where they had a 10,000 gold lead, but it was not the case whatsoever. They bounced back in a huge way in game 4. Cool is popping off on the Twisted Fate. He completely controlled the map. They force a game 5 in dominant fashion, and in this one is really when you got to see Uzi come out ahead of that Uzi versus San matchup. This time he gets the Lucian. He got disgustingly fed, and it was also a niche little pick for Insec on the Pantheon. It was something that we saw picked throughout the year as a counter to Kha'Zix, and he did a man drop very deep in. You know, he was feeling quite confident. He performed well on that Pantheon. Uzi went 11-1-10 in that game. Yeah, 21 KDA is not bad, and Starhorn win the series. They move on to their second straight finals, and obviously the rivalry between them and OMG was already there. It was only accelerated even more in this series because they met in the LPL summer playoffs leading into that event, but the crazy picks in the jungle for Insec and the come from behind wins and the back and forth team fights and just ignoring objectives and fighting is why this one comes in as number 5 for one of the best series of all time at Worlds. Number 4, it's two different regions. We get some EU versus the LCK, and 2015 Fnatic against SKT and MSI was the greatest best of 5 that the West had done against the Korean team until 2017 quarterfinals. Misfits versus SK Telecom, and this was an incredible series. It started just how you would have expected. SKT completely destroying Misfits in almost a perfect game. Only one kill to Misfits' name, and SKT up 1-0. And then Misfits and the boys said, all right, we cannot play so standard because we'll have no chance in this series. So cue the Blitzcrank for Ignar. He's the only guy playing it at this World Championship, basically. He pulls it off, and he catches out Faker multiple times on that Corki in the mid lane, just roaming around the map, picking people off. All of a sudden, SKT not expecting it whatsoever, and then Misfits bounce back and take a game. And you'll remember, this is when SKT looked vulnerable, to say the least, but they were still the two-time defending champions. Tied at 1, heading into game 3. Okay, no Blitzcrank. What else you got, Ignar? Well, we got a Leona bottom lane. Obviously, you remember this incredible 2v2. You remember this was the Ardent Sensor meta. Everyone's playing Lulu, Karma, or Janna, and then you play the Leona with a Fervor build, which is what Rooms were back in 2017, and him and Hansama absolutely dominate that 2v2. The Leona engages are on point. It takes a little while, but Hansama just gets incredibly fed on this Tristana to get things rolling for Misfits. All of a sudden, they're up 2-1 against the two-time defending champs, and in game 4, they had the lead. They were in the driver's seat, and this play, they just overextend a little bit too far, and SKT, this is the one window they need to get back into this series. You overstep, you make one single mistake, and the greatest team of all time, you best believe that they are going to cash in on it. This time, Bang is on the Tristana. They get back into the game, and then it's only a matter of time. One more team fight. Bang untouched in this one. Late game, Ardent Sensor, hyper carry, yes. The game is over. It's a quadra kill. But we go to game 5, and Misfits don't implode. They are right in this game 5. They were just picking off Huni left, right, and center on that Jace. Power of Evil was hunting for him with the Shen. Alfari there to help him out. Multiple times he was picking him off, but still SKT stayed in the game, and Huni would eventually get his revenge with a teleport flank in one of the final fights in this one. It was low kill. It was all about map movement in game 5, but here comes the Jace. He gets his revenge instantly, blows up Power of Evil, even survives at the end. It goes a couple of kills over to SKT, and with them being right outside the Misfits base, that would be enough. The icon flashes come out. SKT survives. An absolute nail-biter. Misfits, to this day, people still remember this series because it was such an impressive run from them. And kind of before 2018, this is when you saw teams not adhering to the meta and playing these interesting picks. And you even saw Wolf pick up the Blitzcrank against RNG in the very next round. Shout out to Misfits for playing one of the greatest series of all time. Coming up after the break, we heard you like reverse sweeps. Well, these were oh so close to the most incredible reverse sweeps in the history of the game. What is up, down, and sideways, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to League Unlock as we count down the greatest series in the history of the World Championship. Anytime you see a reverse sweep or a near reverse sweep, it's either a combination of incredible comeback and some huge throws, and that was something we had in 2018, except save without the throws, really. We're talking KT versus Invictus Gaming in those quarterfinals, which was a very tough matchup to draw in round 1 of the knockouts, and I still stand by the fact that these were the two best teams overall at the tournament and the real grand finals of the World Championship. You remember IG came in as that second seed to KT, who were favorites for the entire tournament. But game one and game two, really, IG were just putting on an absolute clinic. And as we remember, at the end of this entire tournament, they kind of shaped the meta themselves with all these insane flex picks in the solo lanes. Obviously, Urgot was completely broken, and they just played a heavy skirmish playstyle. They were fighting left, right, and center. KT still kind of playing that slow-paced LCK game and playstyle that we saw, and it did not work for them in the first two games. The Shy was definitely winning that matchup against Smeb pretty favorably, and Rookie was dominating. He was dominating in terms of roaming around here. You see the Galio pick in this game, which was something we didn't see nearly as much in 2018 as we were in 2017, but game one and two were really no contest. It was IG coming out on top in pretty dominant fashion. 2-0 start, and it looked like, oh my God, the favorites coming into this event are eliminated before they even get to semifinals, which is insane to think about. And then we cue the game three ending, and the context in this one is, you see that bottom screen, the Shy is incredibly fed. He's 2 levels ahead of Smeb. He has no chance in that 1v1. He's literally just flashing and dashing around, trying to delay time so that IG can end the game, or KT can end the game. And then finally he says, you know what, I can't win this 1v1. I'm gonna TP away from my own base to help the rest of the members push for KT, and then the Shy is left alone pushing with a super minion, and it looks like even the observers believe IG is going to win, but KT, with the added help of Smeb pushing, keep their tournament lives in the competition and go to game 4. Absolutely insane ending to keep them in the series, and you know that all the momentum is now on their side, and you immediately saw that in game 4, and surprisingly enough, you saw the Shy get subbed out after game 3, even though he put on an insane performance. I don't know if they were trying to avoid tilt from him, but Duke comes in, plays the Aatrox in this one, and it is 7-1, hardly any kills. It's KT dictating the pace. You never see IG finish a game with 1 kill, and all of a sudden, we're going to a game 5, and you know the Shy is coming back in. Again, all the momentum is there for KT Rolster. Rookie even forgets to buy items at the start of the game. IG looks tilted, but somehow they overcome that mental boom and get back into this game. Rookie locks up first blood, and then you have the most memorable team fight. Jackie Love, the man who was the most questioned in 2018 for IG, steps up with a huge team fight win, ends up with a quadra kill, the aggressive flash that blows up Deft instantly before he can do anything. It would be a few more team fights and a few more perfectly positioned fights again from Jackie Love on the Xayah, and somehow IG overcomes the absolute storm of momentum that KT Rolster gets from surviving that game 3 to take down the tournament favorites in 5 games and eliminate yet another Korean team before they got to the semifinals. But either way, didn't really matter how that game 5 went. This series was insane. Either you have an incredible reverse sweep or an incredible bounce back from IG to kind of reset mentally and survive that 5th game and eventually win the entire tournament. So KT, I know people say they were disappointed with their run at that World Championship, but they were clearly, to me, the second best team at the event. Overall, they just went up against the champions. Next on our list, we know we got to have more SKT being featured here. You thought that reverse sweep would have been absolutely insane. Well, the World Finals in 2016, Samsung versus SKT, if that reverse sweep had come to fruition, it would have been even more insane, obviously, than the KT versus IG one, because similar to that one, the first couple of games, it looked like it was going to be all SKT as the defending world champs, although I will say game 1 was very back and forth, and it went north of 50 minutes, and this whole series, my lord, to the casters and crew, everyone involved in these World Finals must have just been exhausted, because this was an absolute marathon of a best of 5. I mean, you know, when you start out with game 1 going 54 minutes plus, it's going to be a bit of a doozy, but I don't think anyone was expecting it to go as long as it ended up going. Look at these tanks trying to take down the Nexus, by the way. All the carries on both sides were dead in the final team fight, but the Nexus did eventually go down. Then you have game 2. It is an absolute stomp for SKT, 18-3 in kills. Faker's Rise is disgustingly fed. Bang is two-shotting people. It's like, all right, just more of SKT's dominance over the rest of the world. Doesn't even matter if it's their Korean brethren. They are the best team of all time. Should be a quick 3-0. Let's get these guys out of here so we can go for an early dinner. Game 3 even started to look like that as well. It was a big lead, 10K plus, 14K for SKT, and then all of a sudden, Samsung starts finding some fights to get them back into the game. The Aurelian Soul for Crown is putting in work, and all of a sudden, oh no, 30 minutes goes by, 40 minutes, 50 minutes goes by, and you realize, okay, this gold lead at this point, it is irrelevant. Everyone is pretty much full build, and there were a lot of tanks in the 2016 meta. So yeah, the team fights took a pretty damn long time for people to actually go down. Ruler goes in aggressively on Ezreal, as now we have seen for many years after that. And then with 4 dragons to their name, Ambition comes up with the biggest dragon steal probably in the history of the game and gets away and survives from it. Bangi's Smite Key not on point in that one, and with an Elder Dragon and 4 dragons, it would eventually be Samsung surviving, keeping their championship dreams alive and forcing a game 4 after 70 minutes. We thought this series was going to be over, and then game 4, it's just more 40-minute action. Game 2 was the only game in this series that did not go at least 40 minutes, which is absolutely insane. We had a whole lot more back and forth. Ruler, again, it's an aggressive flash in to turn a team fight over into the favor of Samsung. And with the move speeds of Karma, you know he's just cleaning up the rest of this fight. He had an incredible series. And all of a sudden, we are going to game 5, which was very back and forth. It was even Steven for the majority of the game until SKT is able to grab a Baron with superior vision control. They catch out Crown, and all of a sudden, in about 13 minutes of gameplay, they have a 10,000 plus gold lead. But we're still north of 40 minutes, even in game 5. This series never seemed to end. Samsung again had all the momentum, and you saw Bangi and Blank were getting subbed in and out, and finally it is Bangi that comes back in for that 5th game, and SKT wins their 2nd championship in a row, but they were tested as much as they possibly could have been from Samsung, and it's just another case of a team overcoming the overwhelming momentum that comes when you're down 2-0, winning 2 in a row, forcing a game 5. The mental game is there, and SKT wins their 3rd championship and 2nd in a row. Coming up after the break, it is number 1 on this list. You know what series it had to be, and it's one of the best rivalries in the history of League of Legends. Ladies and germs, welcome back. It's League on Lock, and we have reached number 1 on our list, the greatest series in the history of the World Championship. And if you thought it was anything different than this series, you are clinically insane. It is, of course, SKT versus Rox 2017 semi-finals. These guys went head-to-head for not just 2016, but 2015 as well when they were the Coup Tigers. But this series is, and remains to this day, the highest level of competitive League of Legends I think that we have ever seen on the Rift. This series had absolutely everything that you could wish for in a set, and started off with a banger in game 1 that was very back and forth. It was a lot of movement around the map, and you saw a team with triple Infernal Dragon actually lose the game because SKT just completely outplayed them with macro and prioritizing objectives. So they allowed the triple Infernal to happen, and then we go into game 2 and things get insane with the Misfortune support pick. Nobody's ever seen this. It came out as a counter pick to the Zyra support, which was completely just annihilating throughout this entire tournament, and the MF support pick was absolutely insane. And this is just the kind of play that we were seeing. Perfect turret dive, nobody dies. And yeah, the Misfortune pick comboed with the Ashe was absolutely disgusting. I felt bad for Wolf because there was basically nothing he could do. And of course, game 2 ends with the incredible Ashe arrow of prey. I mean, these are all-time great highlights and multiple ones that come from the very same series. That Ashe arrow cancels Duke's recall. It delays him enough that gives Rox the chance to, well, destroy the Nexus and tie the series at 1 in insane fashion. And you head into game 3 and SKT says, you know what? It's fine. We can deal with the Misfortune pick. It's not that big a deal. Actually, it was a big deal, and you had absolutely no answer for it. A clean Lee Sin play from Peanut. Gorilla even survives, and I mean, Bang and Wolf were just getting smashed by this pick. What are you supposed to do to that? I don't know how Gorilla found out about this pick, but it was absolutely insane. Game 2 ended with an incredible Prey highlight on Ashe, and Game 3 had another one with this insane 2v4 that him and Peanut put forth. And for how good SKT was, these are the kind of plays you had to make as the Rox Tigers to get yourself a 2-1 series lead. To beat the best, you have to play otherworldly, and that's what the Tigers were doing. Game 4 is when Bengi came back in. He won game 1 and then was subbed out. He comes into game 4 and plays Nidalee for the first time in his career on a professional stage, which is absolutely insane. And yeah, turns out he can play the champion pretty damn well. The early game was all him setting things up, and look at this. It's like he's a one-trick on this champion. He kept surviving narrowly from these encounters. He carries them through game 4 to force the Silver Scrapes and the 5th and decisive game in the semis. You best believe that Bengi is staying in the lineup for game 5, especially because Blank lost the 2 games for the Tigers. And game 5, Bengi gets the Lee Sin, and you had just some insane fights here. The flash in from Bang, who gets the Ashe this time. He had some slick plays on it. It's a triple kill that goes to Duke, and Bengi can play the Lee Sin too. He has a nasty engage to set things up as Prey goes down on the Jhin. Bengi just comes in, has an incredible series overall. He's 3-0 against them in this series. It's only Blank who loses games. He saves SKT from the brink of elimination, keeps their hopes alive to defend their title, but just the team fight, the level of coordination, the level of map movement, the individual mechanics and individual outplays that you had throughout this 5-game series was absolutely at another level and absolutely incredible. There is no doubt in my mind that that is still the best series in World Championship history, and probably just the best series of all time from any competitive region. Rox Tigers versus SKT, and it truly is a tragedy that we never got to see Rox hoist the Summoners Cup, but they just kept running into the greatest team of all time in SKT. It's kind of like Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls. There's plenty of all-time great teams that kind of fall to the wayside of history because they were unable to beat the best team of all time. But Rox versus SKT will remain as that best of all time. And the highlights speak for themselves. You have all-time great plays that we'll be talking about for many, many years to come. But that's all the time today for League Unlocked. Thank you guys for joining us as always. Catch you on the flippity flip.